The next day I got home from that very same trip, and my two brothers, Smith was the oldest and Bruce was my second oldest brother. They were both supposed to be going to Puerto Rico, and they had two airplane tickets, one for S. Hart and one for B. Hart. And my brother Bruce totally chickened out and didn't want to go at the last minute. And so my brothers came knocking on my door and said, "Hey, we got this idea. You can go down to Puerto Rico with Smith and take Bruce's place and become a full-time, like you'll have a job and you'll be on the circuit and you'll get plenty of work." And it was really strange because it was right out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, next minute I was on an airplane flying to Puerto Rico, and that was a really strange place for wrestling. And I've never seen anything like it in my life. There was, I think the very first night I got in there, I hurt myself really bad. I slipped on trying to throw a drop kick, and I slipped up and landed right on my right shoulder here and dislocated it. And I remember being in the dressing room after that. It's like my very first night in, and I remember they told me they needed me for a run-in on the last match. And I told myself I had ice pack on my shoulder with like a little plastic bag that I got from they sell pop and stuff like that. They gave me a little bag of ice that leaked everywhere. And I remember I said I got a bad shoulder, and they said, "Don't worry about it. You just got to run in and pull them apart," which is like, give me a break. With a bad shoulder, I can't pull anybody apart. But I had to basically run into the last match with my brother Smith and be part of a pull apart. And I can remember it was a big stadium with instead of glass around the arena like you see in a hockey arena, it was caged, just like a big giant cage match. It was like a fenced cage. And in the ring there was 4 wrestlers. All of them were covered in blood everywhere, and the 2 villains in the match were beating one of the wrestlers merciless with a chain, and it was a pretty violent, gory kind of match. And I remember starting to walk to the ring, and it was a full-blown riot with the fans. Every fan, it was about maybe 20,000 people, and they were all throwing chairs. It was raining chairs, and they were flying in every direction. And I remember I stopped and leaned against the fence, and I said, "I'm not going anywhere near that ring. I could forget it." And I watched from a distance, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life, where the wrestlers, I remember the 2 villains in the match ran past me like stampeding, like running for their lives. They ran past, and there's fans and police fighting with chairs and knocking each other out. And it was like a knockdown drag out between the fans, the wrestlers, security, and police. And I'll never forget watching one guy who was an American guy, I think from Florida or something, but he was definitely an American tourist. He had like his blonde-haired girlfriend, and they were holding hands, and she had a nice flowery dress on, and he had like Bermuda shorts and a sort of a flowery shirt. And he was watching this wrestling, and he had his back to the ring, and the referee was coming from behind, walking towards him, and he was taking the chair and he was swinging it as wide as he could to keep all the fans away from him, who were all trying to kill him for real with knives and things like that. And he was a Puerto Rican referee named Hammer, and he was fighting for his life for real. And he was backing up towards this couple, and I remember the couple, the woman was facing the other way, and the man was facing the other way. And I could see it happening, and I actually started to run to the ring to see if I could save him from being clobbered. But I knew I was going to be late. I couldn't run that fast, and I wouldn't get there in time. And I remember I stopped, and I watched him, the referee, turn around and just lambaste this guy in the head, knock him completely out cold. And I remember the girlfriend was standing there holding his hand still, and she's watching all the stuff, and I remember her turning around and looking, and like she couldn't believe he was out cold. That was my first night in Puerto Rico.